The Galactic Assembly Citadel loomed like a jewel in the cold black of space 10 kilometers high and thrumming with energy from 1,000 species. It was an architectural feat unmatched in the known galaxy. Gleaming crystal spires floating, monoliths of obsidian, and living alloys pulsating with the rhythm of artificial gravity. Within it, the galaxy's most powerful minds debated policy, trade, and peace, or, at least, the approximation of it. For Commander Rhea Morgan, stepping into the assembly was like walking into a myth. Humanity had been a whisper in the galactic community for years, a new species crawling its way out of its gravity well, still tangled in its own tribal politics. But now Earth had earned a provisional seat after surviving the First Contact Protocol gauntlet barely, and Rhea, a decorated ex-Special Forces officer turned diplomatic envoy, had been chosen as humanity's representative. She was tall for a human, lean muscle, built under pressure rather than vanity. Her dark hair was tied in a simple knot, her eyes sharp and alert. She wore the standard silver-gray diplomatic uniform issued by the Terran Coalition. But unlike many other delegates, she carried herself not like a politician, but like a predator. In a room full of prey, pretending otherwise, the assembly hall was already in session when she arrived, dozens of species occupying their floating biopods or platforms, their translators humming with real-time audio and pheromone interpretations. The air was thick with tension and chemicals Rhea couldn't even name. She stepped onto Earth's assigned platform, a modest obsidian disk, ringed in adaptive alloy, and nodded respectfully toward the High Speaker. High Speaker Exturvo, a gelatinous, multi-limbed organism from the Council of 12 Worlds, blinked, its radiant sapphire orbs in greeting. Representative Morgan of Earth, you are welcome. Rhea nodded once. The honor is mine. Speaker. Ceremony concluded. The floor was handed to a cluster of Zelari scholars, avian bipeds with brilliant plumage and sharper intellects. They were anthropologists by trade, fascinated by Earth's rapid rise to spaceflight and its chaotic war. Past we extend our curiosity to the human delegate. One of them crooned in a musical trill. Your species intrigues us. So very much conflict, so very much endurance. We ask. The translator paused, synthesizing a mix of formal and informal phrasing. What is your planet's apex predator? The question was met with light chuckles from some delegates, a harmless icebreaker. The kind you ask a new species to gauge how they see themselves with reverence, fear, humility, or arrogance. Rhea didn't laugh. She smiled, and then she raised her hand. No words, just that, a single, deliberate gesture. The room fell quiet. The laughter died. The Zelari delegate ruffled his feathers. Forgive us, Ambassador Morgan. Perhaps the translator was unclear. We asked, what creature is Earth's most dominant? Predator. Rhea tilted her head, that smile not fading. I understood the question. I'm the answer. Several murmurs swept through the chamber. A few of the larger reptilian species cocked their heads in amusement. Others, particularly the herbivorous or aquatic species, grew visibly uneasy. Clarify, if you will, said a Slothran diplomat, whose voice sounded like boiling syrup. Surely your world has dangerous fauna-large teeth, toxins, claws. Yes, we do not understand the implication. Rhea folded her arms behind her back and took a breath. When she spoke, it was calm, measured, but each word was as heavy as a lead slug in gravity boots. Humans have no claws, no venom. Our teeth are blunt. We can't run particularly fast. We don't see well in the dark. We're born weak, nearly useless for the first few years, and yet we became the top of the food chain, not through physical superiority, but by thinking, enduring, adapting, and when needed fighting, without restraint. She paced slightly, letting the silence stretch, just long enough to make them listen. Wolves hunt in packs. So do humans. But wolves don't build snares, coordinate across distances, or use terrain for advantage. A bear will fight tooth and claw, but it won't ambush prey from a tree line with a projectile. It made from minerals it mined and forged. And a lion may be king of the savannah, but humans have turned lions into circus acts, pets, and documentaries. You claim this makes you superior? The Jarn Dominion representative asked, a creature of plated armor and glowing implants. His tone was sharp, accusatory. I didn't say superior, Rhea replied, her voice like flint striking steel. I said apex. There's a difference. More murmurs. Interest shifted. Some delegates leaned forward. Others looked at her warily, as if unsure whether she was here to negotiate or to assess potential threats. I find this unsettling, said a gelatinous celly envoy, whose body shimmered with rippling color. To take pride in violence, Ria's expression didn't change, but the air around her felt colder. It's not pride, she said. It's honesty. We evolved not just to kill but to outthink anything that tried to kill us. We turned every predator on our planet into either an endangered species or a resource. We didn't just survive. We engineered survival into our biology. We celebrate strength, honor the hunt, and we train even in peace, because we know peace doesn't last forever. But surely your species has evolved past such aggression. A gentle-voiced aquatic being chimed in, gills fluttering. We hoped you had ... softened. Ria met its gaze without flinching. We have disciplined it. We teach children how to fight, not because we want them to, but because we know someday they might have to. And because on Earth, pretending threats don't exist doesn't make them go away. Silence blanketed the chamber. Behind her, Ria's assistant to young diplomat training named Arish shifted uneasily. "Commander," he whispered, "maybe we should dial it back a little." She held up a hand, not to silence him, but to let them look again, to remind them. This was what Earth had sent. Not a bureaucrat, not a weak-willed scientist, but a soldier who could speak with words sharper than blades. Ria turned back to the Zelari scholars. "You asked who our apex predator was. You assumed it was something we'd fear, something we'd run from or chain up. But on Earth, the most dangerous thing isn't what lurks in the dark. It's what stares into it and keeps walking." And just like that, the tone of the room shifted. Respect, caution, curiosity. Now tempered by unease, because the humans weren't what they expected. They were something older, something primal, wrapped in civility, and they had only just arrived. Silence lingered long after Commander Ria Morgan returned to her seat. The Galactic Assembly's air felt heavier now, a subtle shift in temperature. Less chemical pheromones, more nervous glances. Delegates who once viewed humanity with curiosity now studied her like one might study a dormant weapon. Fascinating. There was no true gratitude in its glistening voice, and ... illuminating answer. Others didn't even try. Ria remained still, eyes scanning the delegates. She didn't smirk, she didn't gloat. She knew exactly what she'd done. She'd told them the truth hand. Not all species appreciated the taste of truth, especially when it was served raw. A soft mechanical chirp came from the platform beside Earth's, the Tormic Combine. A warrior race known for their brutal tournaments and blood rituals. Their representative stood a thick, armored being with jagged mandibles and skin like weathered iron. His translator hissed with static. But every species glorifies its predators. We all have tales of victory over beasts. Yours are no different. Ria gave a slow nod. I never claimed we were unique in conflict. I'm saying we ... efficient, practiced. There were audible murmurs at that name. A few aquatic species, flared gills or tentacles reflexively. Even the high speaker's bioluminescent skin pulsed in a warning hue. Ria frowned. I've read the archive. Apex predator, native to Hearth Prime. Multi-limbed regenerative hunts telepathically through fear signals. The Tormic's grin widened. It decimated the surface colonies of 3 separate empires before it was contained. Even we cannot tame it. You claim humans are apex predators. Could you tame this? Ria didn't hesitate. We wouldn't tame it. We'd study it, understand it, and kill it. That's what we do. More gasps. One delegate hissed audibly. The Tormic narrowed his eyes. Big words, Terran. Ria turned slightly, tapping a discrete control on her podium. A soft blue shimmer filled the air as a holographic feed flickered. To life above the assembly floor, Operation Stormgate. Mars Outpost Defense. Let me show you something. Ria said calmly. This was a human outpost on Mars, attacked by a mercenary force composed of Zereth raiders and rogue Tragan war. They struck under cloaked conditions. Night raid, no civilian evacuation. The objective was to force surrender within 6 hours. The recording played, grainy from multiple drone feeds, The first shots rang out in infrared plasma fire streaking through the dark Martian sky. Explosions lit the outpost's perimeter. Human communications blurred into urgent radio chatter. The attackers advanced fast, confident. Then came the countermoves, barricades of repurposed mining equipment, kill zones preset with remotely operated turrets, rooftop sharpshooters with modified atmospheric rifles. No reinforcements, no backup, just colonists, some of them in exosuits, others in dust-stained uniforms. They didn't fight clean. They fought smart, relentless. In one feed, a young woman strapped with explosives sprinted into an advancing squad. A flash cut to black. When the feed ended, silence returned. 70 humans dead. 1,623 enemy casualties. They never even breached the command hub. Who were the defenders? Asked a skeptical insectoid delegate. Rhea didn't blink. Farmers, mechanics, one retired combat engineer. They were supposed to be a science colony. A long pause. The room struggled to digest what they had seen. You see, she continued, voice soft now, on Earth, we don't just survive predators, we study them, admire them, write songs and myths about them. Then we build weapons to defeat them. And if we can't, we become something worse than them, not just at her words, but at the clarity with which she spoke them. There was no malice, threat, just a cold truth spoken by a species that had earned every scar it bore. You're monsters, whispered the Selly envoy, not accusingly. But almost in awe, Rhea smiled sadly. We are what the universe made us. We survived ice ages, asteroid strikes, plagues, and each other. Before, why seek peace? Because we've seen what happens when there's none, Rhea said simply. We don't fear war, we just know what it costs. There was a stillness now deeper than before, the kind that settles after revelation. But the Tormach wasn't finished. Stories and footage, he said, rising again. Still, just data. What you call courage, I might call luck. A broken clock still strikes twice, human before Rhea could answer. The high speaker intervened. Enough. The assembly floor is not a trial. The human delegate has answered the question and offered testimony. That is sufficient. The Tormach growled, but complied, sitting again with a sharp clang of his armor. High Speaker Ixtherivo addressed the floor. Let it be recorded that Earth's representative identifies their own species as the dominant predator of their world. It offers cultural and historical evidence to support the claim. Several delegates nodded slowly. Stand as testimony of intent. The galaxy watches and remembers. We wouldn't want it any other way. After adjournment, Rhea exited the chamber alone. Still do, she replied. It's just written in a language they understand now. They're scared. Good, she said without cruelty. Ari looked troubled. I thought the goal was cooperation. They stepped into the shuttle, Earth's seal glowing softly on its side. As the doors closed behind them, Rhea cast one last look at the Citadel. The galaxy had finally heard Earth's story, but that was just the beginning. The Citadel drifted above the neutral sector of the Arkan Belt like a silent god, untouched by war or weather, but within its polished walls. The seeds of fear had taken root. The assembly session had ended days ago, but Commander Rhea Morgan's words still echoed through diplomatic channels, military reports, and private intelligence briefings. Delegates who had once seen Earth as a quaint newcomer now reviewed historical databases with unease. The humans had named themselves predators. Some called it arrogance, others honesty, but one species, one empire, took it as a threat. Dominion, High Spire, Capital Moon, Varklin. Unlike the diverse assembly, the Jaran Dominion knew only hierarchy, conquest, and calculated brutality. They'd ruled 6 systems through fear and precision, and Earth's sudden rise disrupted their perception of the galactic order. This cannot stand, hissed Warlord Krell Tharn, his voice sharp, serrated like his exomandibles. They humiliated us with words, then dared to display military footage as warning. They are testing boundaries, said Warlord Yatavex, tapping her clawed fingers on the strategy table. We let one species talk like this, and others will follow. Krell slammed his fist on the display. Then we remind them what it means to challenge Dominion. A target flared on the star map. New Carthage, a Terran colony in the neutral fringe, rich in mineral resources and lightly defended, It was one of Earth's proudest achievements, a self-sustaining world built by civilians, not soldiers. The message from Krell was simple: strike the cub before it becomes a lion. 3 days later, New Carthage, the skies cracked open. At first, colonists thought it was a meteor shower. Then the bombardments began. Jarn strike cruisers breached orbit like daggers slicing skin. Orbital defense satellites were neutralized in seconds. Communications were jammed. Civilians fled for cover as sonic disruptors echoed across the settlements. It was supposed to be a swift occupation, a show of dominance, a message to Earth and the Assembly. You are not untouchable, but something unexpected happened. The colony fought back not with starships or fleet reinforcements, those were days away, but with miners wielding plasma drills, with engineers who turned excavators into barricades, with retired veterans who taught teenagers how to aim railguns built from construction gear. The Jarn expected a surrender in hours. Instead, they lost 4 drop zones within the first day. Command Bunker Echo, Day 2 of invasion. Commander Julius Wren, formerly of Earth's Arctic Warfare Division, now a logistics officer, surveyed the holographic map. His uniform was bloodied. One arm was wrapped in polymer cast. "We've cut off their eastern landing corridor," he said, voice low. Hydroplant team improvised EMP bombs using pulse coils from the irrigation array. Dropped 2 walkers. Lieutenant Aisha Denari, barely 22, grinned despite her singed hair. "We're holding like devils, sir, but ammo's running low. No word from Earth yet." Wren looked at her. "Good, that means they're coming." Galactic Assembly, emergency session, Day 4 of invasion, when news of the unprovoked strike broke. Chaos ignited across the Citadel. Dozens of species condemned the Jarn. Others stayed silent. Earth's provisional ambassador to the Assembly, Rhea Morgan, stood before the chamber, her fists clenched behind her back. "New Carthage is a colony," she said. "Agricultural, scientific, no military outpost." The Jarn called it a strategic show of force. "We call it what it is, a slaughter." High Speaker Exterivo flared with cold blue light. "Earth may pursue its response according to interstellar law." Rhea nodded once. Then she added, "I recommend the Dominion not wait for peace talks." Earth's response, Operation Black Emberthurth Fleet, didn't move like other navies, where most civilizations launched massive armadas for show. The Terrans sent Task Force Artemis V stealth cruisers, 12 gunboats, a drone swarm hive, and a company of orbital drop troopers known as Hellwind Unit. 9. They didn't come to negotiate. They came to erase, in orbit over New Carthage. They blinded the Jarn warships with solar flare mimics and boarded their flagship using grappling harpoons and short-range teleport gates. Hellwind Unit dropped from orbit in pods the size of coffins, landing like thunder across the colony's perimeter. One Jarn commander watched a pod slam into the ground beside his walker. Before he could order a scan, the pod cracked open and 6 armored humans emerged. Weapons hot, they didn't issue demands. They cleared the zone in 30 seconds. Transmission? Recovered from Jarn Black Box. Battle of New Carthage. They're not soldiers. They're wraiths. No fear signals, no panic. They fight like they've already died and just haven't laid down yet. We underestimated them. Gods help us all. 3 days later, Galactic Assembly, the Jarn. Dominion requested emergency ceasefire. Their forces on New Carthage were annihilated. 2 cruisers destroyed. 1 captured intact and docked publicly outside the Citadel for all to see. The Tyrone flag draped over its hull. Commander Rhea Morgan returned to the assembly floor. Her posture was unchanged, but now no one looked at her with amusement. They looked with caution, respect, even fear. She didn't need to raise her hand this time. The room already knew who the apex predator was. Private Assembly Lounge, post-set. Aquatic delegate from the Ashari drifted beside her. "Was this your plan all along?" "No," Rhea replied, "but it was our contingency." The Ashari's gills fluttered. "So you expected violence?" She shook her head. "We prepared for it. There's a difference." The Ashari hesitated, then asked, "Will Earth seek revenge now?" Rhea turned, meeting his gaze directly. "We don't do vengeance. We do memory. And we remember New Carthage." Closing note of the session record, let it be recorded. The Jarn Dominion's unprovoked assault on the human colony of New Carthage resulted in catastrophic losses after a rapid Terran counteroffensive. Earth now holds an uncontested seat. The Assembly's Defense Advisory Council, comment from Assembly Observer, humanity warned us they were predators. Now we know what they become when you corner them. The galaxy had been quiet for almost 2 months. Too quiet after the fall of the Jarn invasion force at New Carthage. The message had been clear. Do not provoke humanity. Earth's response had been swift, surgical, and devastating. The Assembly had moved quickly to ratify sanctions against the Jarn Dominion. And some member, races long cowed by the Dominion's military strength, began speaking a little more freely, a little more boldly. And yet, beneath the surface, Shadow Deep Systems Network A signal bounced through encrypted dark streams and quantum relays. It originated in the scorched remains of the Jarn Dominion's capital moon, now patrolled by Earth's peacekeeper drones. The message was simple. A whisper to the right ears: Earth bleeds like anything else. We just have to make them show their teeth again. Long enough for the galaxy to fear the bite. The sender was a ghost. The recipients, not fools, but opportunists. All of them. Afraid of what Earth might become? Citadel, Assembly Quiet Chamber Commander Rhea Morgan stood at a private window overlooking the field. She was no longer simply Earth's envoy after the Battle of New Carthage. She had been appointed Special Military Liaison to the Assembly Defense Council. It was a strategic title, polite, but everyone understood what it meant. She was the face of the knife behind her. The High Speaker approached with soft, multi-limbed grace. Humanity's victory has shaken the power balance, Ixtherivo murmured. Some say Earth may soon overstep its mandate. Rhea didn't turn. Some say that because they're used to empires built on intimidation, we didn't destroy the Jarn Dominion. They destroyed themselves by attacking civilians. The High Speaker's skin pulsed with unreadable color. Still, not all species share your sense of proportional response. Rhea finally turned. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were iron. We're not interested in ruling the galaxy, but we are interested in surviving it. A pause. Then, I suggest, the speaker said softly, you prepare for those who don't believe you. Fracture event, Outer Rim Station, Karos 5. The station exploded from the inside out. 1,200 lives lost, 400 more missing. The attack was blamed on a human weapons test. A leaked report, allegedly from an Assembly-aligned intelligence service, cited a rogue Earth research unit experimenting with quantum implosion warheads. Trade with Earth stuttered. News feeds called for an inquiry. Conspiracy networks accused humanity of hiding a doomsday arsenal. Rhea knew instantly it was planted. Earth had no such weapon. But they didn't need Wanbi because the real weapon was already working. Fear. Earth's response, cold and directed. Terran Coalition responded within 24 hours. Live broadcast was sent to every member world and outer system. Commander Rhea stood before a stark white background, dressed in black. No Terran personnel were on or near Karos 5. We offer full transparency. Our ships carry verified transponder logs, and we've opened fleet telemetry to the Assembly for independent review. She leaned forward slightly, voice tightening. But understand this, we will not be made into villains for surviving an unprovoked war. Whoever fabricated this report, whoever orchestrated this event, seeks to drag the galaxy back into fear and chaos. Her gaze hardened. We don't want another war. A pause. But we're better at it than you are. The conspiracy revealed it. Took only days for Earth's AI-assisted forensics to trace the fabricated data. They found inconsistencies in the metadata signatures. Signal path echoes from shadow networks. Eventually, the trail led back to a coalition of fringe species non-voting assembly, observers funded, in part by the Volari Compact, a shadow guild notorious for trafficking weapons, mercenaries, and influence. The Compact had a singular goal: keep the galaxy unstable. War was profitable, and they were terrified of peace under Earth's growing influence. When Rhea received the report, she didn't bring it to the assembly floor. She took it to the Volari home system herself. Volari Prime, the Reckoning the Volari, were arrogant. Born in the gas-giant cities of their world, they believed diplomacy was a game of veils and innuendo. Their spires were filled with secret deals and veiled threats. But on that day, the Terran strike cruiser Vigil's Edge entered orbit without asking. Then, it broadcast the evidence on all open channels, every detail of the Karos 5 attack. Every falsified data point. Every corrupt Volari official's neural signature encoded in the weapon design. The reaction was swift. Assembly enforcement ships descended. Arrests were made, and the Volari compact collapsed from within. No bullets fired, just exposure and reputation. Aftermath assembly, reaction back on the Citadel. The mood had changed again. Earth wasn't just a predator now, it was a strategist, a species that could fight with guns, but preferred to win with evidence, leverage, and surgical action. In a closed-door meeting, several older empires formally motioned for Earth's permanent seat on the Assembly High Council. One delegate, a soft-spined being from the Nithari, Accord voiced concern. If we hand Earth this influence, what will they become? Rhea answered, her voice low. We're not asking for control. We're asking for a chance to stop the kind of monsters we used to be. Meanwhile, far beyond the Ramin, a cold void where stars had no names, a ship drifted without identification. Inside, a being with no known species affiliation smiled as it watched the Earth broadcast from Volari Prime. Its voice, like glass cracking, in slow motion whispered, "Let them rise higher. The fall will be all the more satisfying." A dozen red indicators lit up on its console new missions. More false flags, more blood. Predators, they claim. Then let's see how they handle prey that bites back. The galaxy did not descend into war overnight. It fell in increments, whispers, sabotage. Blood spilled in the dark and denied in the light, and Earth watched, it listened, it prepared. Earth Fleet Command, Luna Station Atlas, the tactical room, was bathed in holographic light. Red zone flashes pulsed across distant sectors. Outposts sabotaged, envoys attacked, human trade convoys ambushed by unknown assailants, each one carefully orchestrated to create plausible deniability. Commander Rhea Morgan stood at the center of it all, arms folded behind her back, jaw set. 37 attacks in 3 weeks, said Admiral Halvorsen, pulling up the latest incident report. Still no direct claims of responsibility, but the signatures always the Semenergy disruptors, heatless explosives, and targeting patterns that match Volari mercenary tactics. They're daring us to lash out, Rhea said quietly. They think if we hit first, we become the tyrants they're painting us as. Admiral Halvorsen looked over. So what do we do? Rhea turned to face the Earth High Command table. The Terran Defense Council, military and civilian alike, had gathered for this moment. We don't lash out, she said. A pause. We strike back. Precisely, mercilessly, quietly. Operation Sable Fangen-like. New Carthage, this wouldn't be a defense. It would be a hunt. Task Force Orion. Earth's elite Ghost Fleet was deployed under blackout protocols, comprised of stealth corvettes, cyber warfare drones, infiltration squads, and 2 quantum-cloaked frigates. Their mission was simple: find those responsible, remove them, leave a message. The first target was Outer Ring Station Zayik, a black market hub suspected of supplying bomb components to the Karos 5 attackers. The Terran strike team infiltrated in silence. 0 casualties, 14 ringleaders. Dead. Data core extracted, evidence sent anonymously to Assembly investigations. Then came the Reckle listening post, a remote relay node hijacked by an unidentified species spreading anti-human propaganda. The node's broadcasting equipment was hacked by a Terran AI ghost named Monarch. Its new message: we are not your enemies, but we are not your prey. Choose wisely. Assembly floor. 1 month later, the assembly had gone quiet. For the first time in memory, the floor held no accusations, no challenges, no diplomatic jabs toward Earth. Because the galaxy now knew Earth's predators didn't need to roar. They just moved in the dark and left silence in their wake. Rhea Morgan stood again before the Galactic Council. The attacks have ceased, she said, voice calm but clear, because those who waged war from the shadows now know we can walk. There too. She paused, then continued. You wanted to see our restraint. You've seen it. We've not claimed territory. We've not demanded tribute. We only demanded truth. A Zellery scholar delegate leaned forward, voice soft. And if they try again, Rhea didn't smile. She looked them in the eyes and said, then we take the gloves off. On Earth public broadcast, the Terran News Network aired a global address, not just for Earth, but for the colony's outposts and allied species. It featured recovered footage from Task Force Orion, glimpses of precise surgical strikes, encrypted logs decrypted in real time, traitorous factions falling from within, and a closing statement from Rhea. This is not the story of our rise to power. It is the story of our refusal to kneel. Assembly Defense Council, special meeting. While many worlds now viewed Earth as a stabilizing force, some still hesitated. The wounds from the Jarn fallout and Valari scandal were fresh. The question posed was simple. Should Earth be granted authority to lead interstellar security operations across member systems? The vote was tense. Arguments flew: too aggressive, too independent, too effective. Then a delegate from the Valcor Union, a race of deeply conservative aquatic beings, spoke up. "We once feared Earth would become tyrants," she said. "Instead, they became what we all should have been: shepherds with teeth." The motion passed. Earth's formal promotion, Apex Peace Authority, with the Assembly's support, Earth formed the Apex Peace Authority, APA, a multi-species rapid response force, trained by humans, governed by interstellar law, and backed by the Assembly Charter. Some saw it as a diplomatic maneuver, but those who'd crossed Earth before knew better. It was a deterrent, a line in the void, and at the head of it, wearing dark armor with no insignia but the Terran sigil, stood Commander Rhea Morgan. Valari Remnant broadcast intercepted Signal A. Distorted voice whispered across fringe networks. They call themselves protectors now, but they still smell like predators, and predators eventually hunger. In a dark chamber far from any system charted on the assembly map, the last architects of the conspiracy still plotted, but now they knew, if they struck again, the response wouldn't be silence, it would be fire. Closing scene: the Predator within a quiet hangar on the edge of Earth's lunar base. Rhea stood alone beside a decommissioned drop pod, the same type used at New Carthage. Scorched, scarred, still bearing the blood of the humans, who had refused to die quietly. A voice behind Harari, now a full diplomat. "Newly promoted, you changed everything, Rhea." She shook her head. "No, we reminded them of something they'd forgotten." Ari blinked. "What's that?" She turned to him with eyes that had seen war, peace, and the space between. "That monsters don't always come with claws. Sometimes they walk into the room smiling and raise their hand." End of Part 5. The Predators Unleashed. Would you like to continue to the final Part 6, a new definition of Predator? The galaxy had changed. Lines had been redrawn not on maps, but in minds, in the shadowed halls of old empires, in the encrypted frequencies of rebel outposts. Even in the curious stares of children raised under alien suns, one name echoed louder than any other Earth, not because it ruled, but because it didn't need to. Citadel Assembly Hall. 1 year later, for the first time since its founding, the Galactic Assembly stood at full attendance. No empty seats, no delayed envoys. Even the most reclusive species had arrived in person. Today wasn't about war or treaties. It was recognition. A motion had been brought forth to rewrite the Galactic Charter's classification of apex species, not based on biology, but on demonstrated resilience, ethics, and deterrence capacity. Only one candidate met. All three, Rhea Morgan, now a decorated admiral of the Apex Peace Authority, stepped onto the floor, not in diplomatic robes, but her old field uniform. Scars on her gloves, creases where armor once sat, no medals, just presence. She walked as she always had, with the silent weight of a species that had clawed its way out of extinction. A dozen times, and dared to raise cities atop its own battlefields. High Speaker Exturivo presided, representative of Earth. It said, with more gravity than ceremony, the Assembly has motioned to amend the Galactic Apex Doctrine, to redefine what it means to hold that title not as a natural killer, but as a master of restraint. The Speaker turned. "Do you accept?" Rhea's voice was low, but it rang like thunder. "We do not accept the title as conquerors or as masters. We accept it as survivors who choose not to become what nearly destroyed us." A murmur rippled through the hall. This was not what some expected. There was no gloating, no threat, just truth, laced with memory. Elsewhere, fringe planet Scarlanthry, at the edge of civilized space. An independent mining colony broadcast a distress beacon, Unknown vessels had landed. Raiders, unidentified species, heavily armed, the signal reached the assembly relay. Most would take days to respond. Earth's APA ship verdicts Shadow responded in 37 minutes. By the time the pirates realized the APA had boots on the ground, half their command structure had vanished, pulled into shadows by armored humans wielding stun blades and neural scramblers. The survivors fled. The colonists never fired a shot. On departure, the humans left no banners, no demand for loyalty, just a message burned into the side of a shipping container. Predators protect, cowards run. Assembly Archives Public Recording A historian posed a question during a recorded symposium. What makes humans truly dangerous? The answer wasn't spoken by a Terran. It came from an Ashari water scribe whose people had once feared Earth's wrath because they remember pain and still choose mercy, because they mastered war and chose peace, because they could dominate, and instead they teach. Citadel, after the Votria, stood alone once more, gazing out the high observation deck at the black canvas of space. Her assistant, now Ambassador Arisola, approached quietly. "It passed," he said. "The doctrine is changed. Humanity is now listed as the only cognitive apex species in known history." Rhea didn't smile. She simply nodded. "They'll either fear us more now," Ari said, "or respect us more." Rhea turned, voice soft. "Let them choose." A beat passed. "And what about you?" he asked. "Do you think we deserve the title?" She exhaled slowly, as if measuring the weight of 100 generations in a single breath. "We're not apex predators because we kill better. We're apex predators because we looked into the dark, and instead of becoming monsters, we built the light." Epilogue Earth, 12 years later, Museum on Luna hosts an exhibit titled What It Means to Raise Your Hand. It's named after the first day humanity entered the Galactic Assembly. The centerpiece is a recording of Rhea Morgan's infamous gesture, a hand raised .com, unshaking next to it, etched in Terran steel. They asked what Earth's apex predator was. She just smiled and raised her hand. Not in pride, not in threat, but in memory of everything we overcame to earn the right not to raise it in violence. It began, as many things do, with a question. Not one asked in fear or challenge, but curiosity. What comes after the apex? It wasn't posed by a general, not a council member. It came from a child, Kale, born on the Martian colony of Red Eden, raised in peace forged by old war. He asked his teacher one morning, tapping on a holoscreen showing Earth's historic rise through the assembly. "If we're the apex now, do we just stay there forever?" The teacher, an Ishari scholar named Ulani, had no answer, but the question traveled and far away. Admiral Rhea Morgan heard it. Earth Command, Deep Council, Chamber Rhea, stood once again before the High Command. Older now, hair streaked with gray, but her stance unbroken, her gaze just as sharp. A translucent display hovered before the gathered leaders, showing rising reports of instability, breakaway systems rejecting assembly law, refugee flotillas seeking protection, and a growing number of species invoking Earth's name. For justice, for fear, or for guidance. "Order is holding," said High Counselor Everin, "but just barely." "The APA is stretched thin," Rhea nodded, "because Earth has become something we didn't expect, which is," turned slowly, looked each of them in the eyes. "The default answer to problems this galaxy never learned to solve." Citadel Memorial District, Hall of Voices in. The heart of the Citadel, a quiet chamber pulsed with light. It was here that the Assembly preserved the last words of extinct civilizations, lost colonies, and peacekeepers who fell in unknown wars. New section had been added, the Terran Legacy Wing. But unlike the others, it wasn't built for remembrance. It was built for warning. A new AI curator, codenamed Legacy, maintained it. Legacy didn't just archive data, it modeled outcomes, projected patterns, and what it saw concerned id message to Admiral Morgan, priority R8 from Legacy. AI Core, Citadel Assembly 2, Admiral Rhea Morgan, Earth Fleet Retired Simulation 973C. Predicts a 74.2% likelihood of galactic dependency on Earth within 42 cycles. At current rates, assembly autonomy will erode. Humanity's legacy will not be one of peace, but of unintended empire. It was signed not with a name, but a question. When the predator becomes the shepherd, who watches the shepherd? Rhea's last mission retired in name. Rhea still moved like a soldier. She returned to Luna Station under diplomatic clearance and issued a single directive to the APA: activate Legacy Protocol. It was an idea she'd designed years earlier, but never deployed. A contingency for the future. A program to dismantle Terran dominance peacefully and distribute its knowledge, strategy, and deterrence capabilities across other species. So no single world would ever bear the burden of power again, or the temptation. Assembly. Debate. The Fracture Line Legacy Protocol split the Assembly in two. Some feared the consequences. Without Earth as a stabilizing force, chaos returns. Others embraced the shift. We cannot trade one tyranny for another, even a kind one. And some simply waited to exploit the gap. But the Council voted, barely, and the motion passed. Would begin offloading power carefully, deliberately. Rhea didn't cheer. She simply whispered to herself, "We never wanted the crown, just the right to live." 10 years later, Earth Pale Blue against the APA became the Interstellar Cooperative Corps, staffed by a dozen species. Earth no longer led by default, but by invitation. Human technology was declassified across assembly space, its military doctrines taught in joint academies, shared with caution, and in orbit above Earth. The last APA ship Vigilant Edge was decommissioned. Admiral Rhea Morgan was offered a monument. She declined. "I don't want statues. I want the galaxy to forget the raised hand and remember the day we put it down." Epilogue. 100 years later, a new child, this one Valeri, born on a peaceful water moon, walked through a floating museum. He stared at a hologram titled Predator, Protocol, the Human Paradox. A docent hovered beside him, wings humming softly. "What were they?" the boy asked. "Predators, protectors, builders." The docent hesitated, then answered, "All of it. But more than that, they were the ones who showed us that being the apex doesn't mean staying on top forever. Sometimes, the strongest thing a predator can do is teach others how to stand beside it and then walk away." It started in XR-17, a sector so quiet it had no trade lanes, no colonies, just drifting rock and a pale, old star. Then something began to eat the light. Not metaphorically, literally. Spectral readings from surrounding systems showed collapsing photon emissions, as if light itself were being absorbed by something that didn't reflect, didn't scatter, didn't exist in a conventional sense. First, a probe vanished. Then the scout ship Farsong. Then the listening post on Moon ZRK-3 went dark mid-sentence. One message escaped, corrupted but still chilling. "We are not alone in the dark, and we were never supposed to wake it." 2. A familiar Glyphot APA intelligence command. The final image received from the doomed Farsong ship was put under quantum filtration. There, on the surface of a titanic object, organic metallic, neither were markings, symbols, and not alien ones, Terran glyphs, pre-Exodus era. Language of old Earth myth, older than any known colony. Translated, we were made to fight them. When we forgot why, they remembered. The object moved between stars like a ghost whale, silent, enormous, ancient. It wasn't just alive, it was thinking. 3. Rhea Morgan's last mission. Rhea Morgan hadn't stepped foot on a ship in years. She'd outlived her enemies, her wars, and even most of her friends. But when she saw the footage, when she heard the glyphs translated, her mind snapped into old formation battle ready. Ice-clear. She was the only one old enough to remember Project Genesis Beta, the files Earth had buried beneath Arctic ice. The real reason humans had evolved so violently, so strategically, so fast. Humanity's rise hadn't been an accident. It had been insurance. Against this, the creature wasn't a weapon. It was a reaper, a failsafe for the galaxy. And it had come to check if the galaxy had grown too bold. "We were never the apex," Rhea whispered in her ship cabin, watching the dark Leviathan move against star charts. "We were the warning sign." 4. Assembly fractures. The Citadel Assembly met in panic. For the first time in centuries, no one argued, no one maneuvered. They listened. Rhea Morgan appeared via direct neural link her body to frail to travel, but her voice carried the force of legacy. This isn't a war you can win with numbers. You don't conquer a Leviathan. You survive it by remembering why you were born with teeth. She explained it all, the myths embedded in Earth's genetic memory. The ancient Terran temples found buried deep before the first satellite launched, the Exodus not as exploration, but containment. The humans were meant to stand on the edge of the dark and say, not yet, but we stepped back. We shared our strength. We became civilized. And now the dark is asking, are you ready? 5. The Leviathan awakens in XR17. The object opened. It was not a ship. It was a sentence. Inside its walls were skeletons of forgotten species. Stripped of memory, it pulsed with biosignal frequencies calibrated to fear responses across thousands of ginos. It spoke no words, but the message was clear in every transmission. Your cycle is over. You have grown arrogant. Your predators have become caretakers. This galaxy must be ... reset. 6. Predator Protocol Rhea had planned for this decades ago. Hidden in the Earth-Mars Lagrange vault was a final directive called Predator Protocol A. Reverse-Exodus. A retreat. A summoning. Earth sent the signal to every allied species. Every world it had ever protected, liberated, or warned. Not a call for unity, a reminder of their own predatory history. And across the stars, a response echoed. From insectoid hive means who once ate suns to survive. From ex-warlords turned peaceful monks. From hybrid creatures born from extinction events. They didn't unite under Leviathan arrived in system GXR5, just 3 jumps from inhabited space. It tore apart a moon with gravitational pulses. Its skin reconfigured itself based on threat profiles. And then, the stars lit up. A coalition fleet, not just APA, but ships from 50 species duck-cloaked in formation. It was not beautiful. It was hungry. Hundreds of old warlords, scavenger kings, former enemies stood side by side with humans in unified silence. The apex hadn't vanished. It had simply been waiting. They struck tachyon spears, temporal warheads, neural pulse nets. The Leviathan adapted. It fought back. Planets cracked, but the line held. For 7 full days, it held 8 Rhea's last words. A PA command, her body finally gave out. But her mind uploaded, accelerated, spoke one final time as the Leviathan screamed against the combined fleets. We are not apex predators because we dominate. We are predators because we never stop protecting the pack. We fight not for conquest, but so that life gets another sunrise. Then Earth's last kinetic spear, hidden in Jupiter orbit for 800 years, fired. The Leviathan broke apart. Not with a scream, but a whisper. 9. Aftermath. A new kind of predator. The galaxy never returned to peace. But it found something better. Balance. The assembly rewrote the Apex Doctrine a 3rd time. Now it... Read. A predator is not defined by what it kills, but by what it protects, and what it chooses not to become. Earth did not rise again as ruler. It faded into myth. But every species remembered the woman who raised her hand and smiled not to strike, but to say, I'll stand first. 10. Legacy to 500 years. Later, a child walks through a floating archive orbiting a garden moon. They stop at a single holographic plaque, glowing softly, no photos, no battle stats, just a phrase. They asked what Earth's apex predator was. She just grinned and raised her hand, not to dominate, but to promise. Not on my watch.